Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about Best Served Cold by Joe Abercrombie. The first of the First Law standalone books, at least the first one that I'm, reading. So yeah, with that being said, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and if you're interested, you can check out the Patreon. Link is in the description. So, as always, let's begin. So, Best Served Cold. Oh my goodness. Oh, it's so fun. I like it so much. As you can probably tell by the vlog video I posted, I'm really enjoying the book, and I have completed it, and it might be my new favorite Joe Abercrombie book. I'm curious to know if the other standalones can outdo it, because this one is really well done. So I kind of want to do like a mild non-spoiler bit real quick, because these are standalones, so you can start at any point with the First Law series. So in case anyone's starting with that, I want to kind of start just with some non-spoilery thoughts. So this story is essentially a revenge tale. It's very similar in a lot of ways to Kill Bill, and well, more so that it just has a female protagonist and she has a list of names that she wants to cross off. So it's a really fun kind of straightforward plot. But of course, with Joe Abercrombie, the interest and the enjoyment really comes from his characters. He is the Lord of Grimdark, and he couches his stories in this world that is very grimdark. But the thing about it that is so cool, in my opinion, is he doesn't hyper lean into the ultra violence or like the gore or even the sex or anything like that a lot of people would try to like write in the grimdark subgenre just to have a chance to play with those things. But he really leans very hard into his characters. He writes some of the best written characters I think I've read in all fantasy, and they are just so interestingly complex, and just each one is unique from the other. They're all interestingly complex, but not in the same way. So even from the First Law trilogy, jump into the standalones, the characters are incredibly interesting and fascinating, but never in the same ways. And I'm really impressed that he was able to do that with a group of characters in the first trilogy, and then jump into the standalones and do the same thing, but like pivot it in another direction. So it doesn't ever feel stale. It doesn't ever feel repetitive in any sort of way. It just kind of works like brilliantly. I just love it so much. It's so much fun. All these characters are just a joy to read. They're a joy to hate, and they're like so you wouldn't trust any of them essentially. Like they're so fun to be like, guys, do I trust that? Is that believable? Like a lot of that kind of feeling, you get that from a lot of the characters. It's just really well done. But of course, the world building and magic system, it is essentially non-existent in this book. The First Law First trilogy kind of plays with a bit of a magic system and stuff, but it's very lightly touched on. Here, we're kind of in the time period at like the death of magic and the birth of the Industrial Revolution. So we're kind of in a place where a lot of people think magic has never existed, and they think it's just, tall tales from the people up north or whatever, stuff like that. So this is a really interesting position to place the story, because I had issues with the first trilogy that we just didn't get any understanding of the magic system or anything. But to continue that on with this level of purpose to it just makes it that much more fascinating, because there are parts of the first trilogy that kind of become this overarching kind of umbrella thing to the world, because there are different factions that ultimately work for certain people. So if you recognize the names of them, like Valentin Bulk or like, the Garkish and stuff like that. So if you recognize who heads those different factions, then you can really look at it as this very high level game of chess that's being played by these, higher level people. So I love the fact that that comes through effortlessly, along with the interesting storyline that these characters are in, because even though it is a revenge tale, it doesn't play out exactly like you would see this kind of tale play out. It's really cool, and the themes and concepts around the story, around the way the plot plays out, kind of lends itself to the title of the book a lot more than just the idea of revenge is a dish best served cold. That's clearly where the title comes from, but the themes and everything of the story kind of plays with that concept and plays it in a really interesting way. So yeah, I want to kind of get into spoilers so we can talk in a little bit more detail about the whole stuff. So yeah, spoilers for Best Served Cold by Joe Abercrombie. So the story is a really cool, just straightforward revenge story. Monza, Monza Macaro, I think Monza, if that's not correct pronunciation or whatever. Monza Mercado was basically a really popular high level person in this huge mercenary army, and they worked for Grand Duke Orso. He's one of the big wigs, political players in the land and stuff. So they're a huge mercenary army, and she was very popular. Like she led his forces to many victories and stuff because she's just was a great leader of the mercenary band and stuff. So her popularity got to the point where he was thinking Grand Duke Orso, where he was thinking, oh crap, she might try to come for my space or whatever. Her popularity and stuff might be a threat, along with like that paranoia plus the whisperings of other people in his ear and stuff. He decides he kind of got to get rid of her, and for good measure, he needs to get rid of her brother as well. So he basically has them assassinated. But after the attempt, Monza doesn't die. Her brother dies, but she doesn't. She's severely injured, like thrown off a cliff, all kinds of stuff. Like, but her brother dies and she doesn't, and she basically wakes up and gets help from this one guy who like helps her through recovery and like does a lot of like amateur surgery and stuff, which I just thought was fascinating. Just the level. That's kind of one of the areas in which grimdark can kind of play into it. I've never like read anything about like a medical procedure that my brain would automatically call gory. So the details on which he had to to reconstruct parts of Monza's body that was like severely damaged from all the injuries and stuff, he had to use things like coins, and like he shaved off a piece of his own bone to replace her bone and that kind of stuff. So like that just is just the visceral nature of it, and just the old timey nature of the medicine and stuff of it like strikes my brain as like gore. Like I can only like use the word gore to describe it, but it's a really fascinating thing because oftentimes in stories, medicine and medical procedures will seem very clean, very like sanitized and stuff, but this very much gave that feeling of early turn of the century, early industrial kind of medieval, Renaissance area medicine. So I just thought that was really well done. But after she essentially recovers as much as she can, she swears revenge on all those involved, which is basically 7 names. So she basically plans on killing all of them. That's the entire thing. It's like a revenge tale. But of course, she's severely injured and stuff and still is recovering and all that from the major, assassination attempt. So she gathers a crew together to basically help her scratch off these names. And this is where it's so much fun. Like, as I said, the revenge plot is very straightforward. It's not, hyper complicated or anything. But where Joe really like plays with the story and really like sinks his teeth in, it's with his characters, because I'm learning now that is Joe Abercrombie's signature. Not only is it the fact that his stories are grimdark, but it's his characters. Like I can't sing the praises of these characters enough. So she gathers an entire crew of people together to help her kill all these people and stuff. She starts off with her little main recruitment and then eventually adds on a couple more people. But one of the first people that we see that she recruits is a character that we know, assuming you've read the First Law trilogy. We get to see Call of Shivers. So I thought that was really cool. Not introducing, but adding him to this story and continuing his story, because everything that he was in the first trilogy. God, there has to be a better way to describe these trilogies. The first trilogy, I thought he was a fascinating character. The way in which like it's such a cliche thing, kind of to go for revenge and stuff like that, especially with the Northmen and all that stuff. Because part of Logan Ninefinger's whole thing was he wanted to go get revenge up north and stuff. So it's like kind of almost a cultural thing with them. So for him to like turn away from the revenge against Logan and stuff, I thought that was a really interesting development and stuff. So to have him completely turn his back on all the stuff that's common in the North, like he's tired of all the violence, all the wars, and all the fighting and everything. So he goes to Styria. He's like, I'm going to go try to go south and go be a better man, because somebody told him Styria is a great place to go, and they clearly like. I love the fact that he questions it later, that like, oh, if Styria is such a great place, why aren't you there? Like, but telling him about it. So like, I love that he didn't even think about that until like way down the line. But I would have been like, yeah, if it's so great, why are you up here instead of over there? But that kind of, it sets up the story in a really interesting way. So as he gets to Styria, he's trying to be a better person. He's trying to leave all the violence and all the stuff of being a cliche Northman behind and stuff. So he's just trying to, make his way in life. But it feels like society and life and just the universe itself just will not let this man be a good person. I mean, a lot of it has to do with just the way he responds to these things, but he constantly keeps running into like negative actions. Like people bumping him, people being rude to him, and like all that kind of stuff. So like his natural reaction is to react in this very confrontational way because it's, a lot of it up north is about bluster and like being strongest and everything. So every single time he ends up in these situations, he's just like, like, so he's getting so incredibly frustrated until so many things happen where he's just like, his motivation to be better is kind of kicked in the teeth and stuff. So when he gets the offer from Monza, he's like, well, the world doesn't want me to be better, so I might as well go ahead and help her out and like help her kill these people because if nothing else, it'll pay me. So like he kind of joins up with that. I thought that was really fascinating. His entire arc throughout the story is almost entirely a love story because his motivation for sticking with Monza, like it starts off with the money and then he understands her desire for revenge. He kind of believes it's just and stuff. And then it gets to the point where he's actually getting reluctantly attracted to her and she's kind of reciprocating. But then she's like doing this thing where she very much doesn't want to reciprocate, doesn't want to be with him because she doesn't want to deal with that or whatever. So he kind of takes it as this slight and this like insult and stuff. So his his unrequited feelings kind of start to sour and turn into like negative emotion to the point where he eventually completely turns on her and tries to kill her. So I thought that was just like a great arc for him. Like it was very fascinating because it just constantly hammer home this theme of he's trying to be better, but his environment just simply won't allow it. Like even within the context of helping with all these murders and stuff, he's still just trying to latch on to this whole connection that him and Monza's developing and stuff. And is trying to basically rationalize it in his own head that like he's helping her, he's doing the good thing kind of thing, that sort of self-deluded kind of logic he's putting himself in. But that's also why it turns so completely sour and it gets to the point where he wants to try to kill her. So I just thought that was just so well done. And this is also where we get the romance and stuff happens in there, and they actually do sleep together. And this is one of the scenes right before he loses his eye because they assume that the people that captures them and takes his eye assume they're working for Orso instead of working against him. So like this is where we get the interesting. I mean, I don't want to harp on it too much, but like the way in which Joe Abercrombie writes sex scenes and stuff, like there's a level of realness to it that just doesn't exist elsewhere. So I just really like that. And honestly, the relationship dynamic that he built between Monza and Shivers, I kind of saw the parallels to I think her name was Pharaoh in the first trilogy and Logan. So in the same way that one happened, but they both clearly wanted to be with each other, but didn't really know how to deal with it, didn't know how to process it or move it forward until it eventually completely collapsed. I thought this was almost going to be like a redemption for the fact that relationship completely crashed and burned. So I thought they were eventually going to, reconcile it together and be together and blah, blah, blah. And that was going to help them both like be better later and stuff. But nope, of course, like it doesn't work out. It's mostly due to like her denying herself because Shivers eventually is just like kind of explicit about it. It's more her denying that connection, not wanting to even do anything, like not even wanting to like be affectionate or anything, I guess. And it just sours so much to that point. And I just thought just that entire arc, like I was kind of saddened because I'm like, oh, there's never going to be any real happy couple in the Joe Abercrombie book, is there ever? And I'm not even a romance person, so that should tell you a lot. But there's also this other thing he does with the Cole Shivers storyline and a Monza scene. So I thought it was really, really well done because this is a trick that I see often used in like visual media. It'll be in TV shows and movies and stuff, but I have never encountered it in a book. So I thought this was just incredible. So there's a scene where you assume he and Monza are having sex. It's going back and forth in their perspectives, their their POV. So it's like what Cole is doing versus what Monza's doing and stuff, and they're both describing sex, and it's from both of their perspectives. But it does this thing where we kind of pull out from the scene, and we realize that neither of them are with each other. So I thought that was like, whoa, wait. I thought he was describing what he was doing with her, but it's actually with this other lady who eventually wants to basically hire him to kill people for her also. And I thought she was with him, but she was actually with this other guy who she's basically manipulating for like and all this. So I just thought the way in which that scene was done was just so well done. Like it's something that I've only seen in visual medium. I wouldn't have even known how it would work that well in a literary form like this, but it did. It worked really nice, and I liked it a lot. So yeah, Cold Shivers, really, really great character, really well crafted, very much expanded upon from the first time we saw him, and I expect to see him again because he doesn't die. A lot of these characters at this point, if they don't die, I'm going to now assume that they're going to pop up either in a standalone or probably the next trilogy. So yeah, so let's go ahead and talk about some more members of the crew. That was Shivers. So we spent a good amount of time talking about Shivers. So yeah, next up, let's talk about Day and Morveer, the Poisoner. So I think they're really, really cool too. Another classic, like very loathsome character that Joe has written that just you just really like to watch. Like they're just so fun to watch. He reminds me of Glockta in a lot of ways. Like Glockta is very much more like self-deprecating, kind of like sarcastically like laughing at his own pain in a lot of ways. Whereas Morveer is like he's just so arrogant and foppish. It's just so fun. He is so proud of his own work as a poisoner. He like basically brags about it. Like he's killed so many people, so many high level people and all this kind of stuff. But he doesn't really consider it like dangerous to boast about that because he's basically boasting about his services, about his skill as a tool, not so much like as though he had the malice and was actually going after those people. It's more that he's just has so many successfully completed contracts. Like that's where his arrogance comes from. And he's actually like he was apprenticed to one of the best poisoners ever, or whatever, and he eventually killed him by poisoning him. So like it just all kind of works. So he is him and his assistant Day, who is like they very much give me the Legend of Korra TV show, kind of like Varric and Julie, like kind of give me a lot of that energy. And in a similar way, you take the assistant to be kind of docile when in reality they're very much not. So I thought that was a fun twist because eventually, mostly based on some like whispering in her ear, she ends up betraying him and tries to kill him. But then he gets the upper hand and kills her. And he was so mad about it because like almost immediately after killing her, he kind of half regrets it. And then he's just so mad that like she was able to basically be talked into betraying him and stuff. And I kind of felt for it. I'm like, man, their dynamic was like interesting and stuff. I like really believed it. But at this point when this happens, like the whole crew is kind of starting to fall apart. And it's like there is just a bunch of betrayal that's kind of happening. So he finds out that Monza basically is responsible for her trying to kill him. So he's like, okay, clearly we're not on the same side. And he basically jumps out of the crew and just goes off and tries to find another contract. Of course, the contract he tries to like go to the people that she is trying to kill in order to get a contract to kill her. But when he basically is trying to spew off his own credentials, like, all that kind of stuff, he more or less confesses to help killing some of the people that's on their side and stuff. He's like, but it's not me. I'm just a tool. Like, it's that kind of thing. So I thought that was really fascinating. Just the way he sees his job as a poisoner. And, like, to a degree, the rest of the world kind of sees it in that way, too, because they didn't outright kill him. They just kind of used it as an intimidation tactic. So he's basically now on a mission to kill Monza. So, like, the mission, the entire group and stuff is kind of fractured and stuff. And his interaction with another character later is probably my favorite part in the book. And we'll get to it later when we get to that character. But the next character in the crew that I want to talk about is... I got my notes. Give me a second. Who was it? It was not Captain Morveer. Oh yeah, Friendly and Vitari. So Vitari is a character that definitely was in the first trilogy. She popped up like at least a couple times each book, I think. And she's like a former practical. She's no longer practical the way she was in that trilogy. She seems to just be kind of an assassin now. So Monza basically asks her for help for a few things and stuff. And it's interesting because she kind of comes in and like dips out kind of thing. She doesn't like have much of the group. It doesn't feel like much of a group. She almost felt like a speciality hire because she ends up helping Monza when they go undercover as prostitutes and stuff. And they kind of to end up like helping basically set up the situation so they can kill Carpi, the one guy, like number 7 or 6 on the list, basically. No, not 7, like number 4 or 5 on the list, I think. And, they eventually kill him and stuff, but she kind of starts to recognize that the group is falling apart. She's starting to see the betrayal and stuff that's happening. So she basically says, "Yeah, I'm going to dip," and she basically like just dips right off. She just leaves the group and she just goes. So another character that I assume is definitely going to show back up, because she's just like, I'm not about to deal with all this treachery and betrayal stuff. I'm just gonna go. And she just like leaves and just like straight up just leaves. Like I thought that was really cool, because it's not often that a character will do that. It's kind of like the behind the scenes thing from Scream 2. The camera guy, Joel, who was Courtney Cox's character's camera guy in the second one, the actor himself didn't want to be killed off. He just didn't want to be the cliche of the black guy getting killed off in the movie. So he was talking to the director and stuff and asking, they're like, so what would you do? How would you deal with it? Because basically the character needs to leave in order to progress the story. They're like, what would you do? How would you go? He's like, I take a taxi. I just leave. And then they're like, oh, okay. So they, in the movie, had him just get in a cab and just go, and like never to be seen in the movie again. And that's kind of what she does. She's just like, okay, I'm going to fuck right off. Like, I'm just going to leave. So I love that so much. I thought it was fascinating and such just a real life kind of reaction. Like, oh, they're starting to betray each other. Like, this is looking a little untrustworthy. Let me get out of Dodge. Like, it felt like that. And I just thought that was so, so well done. I love it so much. And Friendly, another character that's just an interesting, fascinating kind of character. I think he's mentioned in the first trilogy, but I can't remember entirely. But he is a ex-con who has basically been locked up most of his life. He started, like, his first crime was like 7 years old or something. He's basically been in and out of prison and stuff. But it's created this kind of Stockholm syndrome kind of thing. The character may also be on the spectrum. He has like behavioral things that may or may not be spectrum related, and he also, it might be OCD, or it might just see there's this. I mean, I guess a lot of those conditions could possibly be developed based on environment and treatment. But either way, I think he basically, through all his time in prison, it caused him to have these I guess behavioral quirks, we'll call them. So his activity of not being very social, not understanding social cues and how to deal with all that kind of stuff, that to me feels very reminiscent of someone who is either on the spectrum with those just activity things, or it's because he was essentially in solitary confinement for the majority of his life and never was able to actually develop any kind of skills like that, you know? So maybe it has a lot to do with that, because he also describes being in prison as a place where the world makes sense, where everything makes sense. Everyone does stuff according to a schedule and stuff, and like the clock and stuff really matters. So he becomes essentially obsessed with numbers. Like 7 seems to be his favorite number, because he was like 7 when he committed his first crime, and then like the big crime he committed when he got really put away was like killing 14 people, because 7 and 2, and he just has this whole thing with numbers and stuff, and I just found it really fascinating. He's kind of like a floating character for a lot of it. He's an insanely badass warrior. Like, you put him up against anybody, I was pretty much assured that the other person was going to die, so I had no qualms there. So he's just kind of like the muscle of the group. He can just go in and just kind of go and help and just like completely wipe people out. And I found it interesting that when everything started to kind of fall apart, so he is essentially asked by one of the other people in the group to protect Monza. So when we get to the point where Shivers is trying to kill Monza, he goes and protects her and ends up fighting Shivers. But I love the fact that because I have basically been trained that when either one of these people are fighting, whoever they're fighting is going to die. So I'm just sitting there the whole time, just high tension and stuff, because I'm like, how does this fight end? Because both of them are too good, but like, I don't want either one of them to die. Like, how does this end? How does this end? And I love the fact that they basically fought each other to a standstill. They ran out of energy, and basically Shivers just get like tossed off to the side and stuff. He's unconscious and stuff, and Friendly just like, okay, and just like kind of goes back or whatever. Like, I thought that whole culmination of the way that entire thing worked out, I just thought it was so well done. And then we have the ending, which, well, sort of the ending. Like, I thought it was kind of fascinating. He basically asked Monza to put him back in jail, to put him back in prison. And it seemed like she probably would have or whatever. Like that's the only place he sees, life is making sense and stuff. But because of all the stuff that was going on, the siege of the city and everything, like the prison had basically been completely abandoned. So people, it wasn't, a prison anymore. It just was completely abandoned and stuff. So he basically was like, oh, so he ends up leaving with Nikimo Kosker, the next person we're going to talk about, and help him go and like push his claim to be Duke, Duke of this other city. So he just kind of like, I guess I'm just going to go and keep helping this guy. Because he was also the one that got him to basically protect Monza. So, all right, I think this is the last character I'm going to talk about because this whole video has just been me talking about the characters. Nikimo Koska. So, he is so much fun. Like, I love it so much. He is so much fun. When we essentially get to the part in the book where we were recruiting him, I didn't think anything of it. I thought he was just like going to be a source to get to a certain place. He's also someone that popped up in the previous books as well, but like didn't have a very big role or anything. So like when he pops back up, like he's a drunk now and stuff. He's no longer like who he was and stuff. He's just completely he's a completely unreliable drunk and stuff. So I thought it was just going to be like useful for like to get one name on the list kind of thing. I didn't really think much else of it. So when we get to basically him having like all the backstory knowledge and stuff, him having been former like general of the 1,000 swords, the 100 swords, the 1,000 swords, the mercenary group and stuff. Like basically he used to have the lead position, the head position, and basically more or less got ousted and stuff, and then like fell into the drink and everything. So I thought he would just basically be a source for one of the names. I didn't think he would be as interesting as he turned out to be. So it was kind of interesting. He was very much a drunk and very unreliable in the beginning. And you got Monza up there just talking mad crap about him the whole time, basically advising him to stop drinking. And he's like, you know what, I am going to stop drinking, like just in this very terrible drunk kind of way where people just don't believe anything he says. So we go through the whole story. He pops up here. He disappears. People think he's basically being unreliable because he's like a self-described like notorious backstabber. Like so he just does all kinds of crazy stuff. So we get to a point in the story where he's been working his little plans and stuff behind the scenes where he ends up becoming the new leader of the 1,000 Swords and stuff. He like takes over the mercenary band, and Monza's like, what? Like she's just kind of like, this that's not like we weren't trying to do this to enrich, do all that kind of stuff, whatever. He's like, but he's doing it anyway. But the thing that happens when he is in that position that I really, really like is that he subtly gets the people that betrayed him previously, he gets them in situations where he can easily kill them. So he's getting revenge on the people that basically ousted him from this position, but he's doing it in such a way where it doesn't raise any flags with the other people that ousted him from the position. So he's just like gaslighting the crap out of everybody, and it's just so much fun. Like, because his acting is so over the top. He's like, oh my God, they killed him. Like, how could they do it? It's such a tragedy. Like, it's just so hilarious. The act is so overacted. It's just so hilarious. I love it so much. And towards the end, so Mozir, the poisoner, is like completely against him and stuff. He's like, trying to kill them and everything. So we end up in this situation towards the very end where he poisons Koska's drink, his giant like flagon of wine or whiskey or whatever it was. Because he knows he's going to refill his flask or whatever, because throughout the entire book, he's had this flask, and he's been drinking that off of it and stuff. So he says he's going to take the flask, he's going to drink it, he's going to poison them. And they're like, yes, okay, that's, him killing the people off of, Monza's crew and stuff. He's trying to actually go out there and kill her and all that kind of stuff, right? So him and the one guy, basically, like the other general that was there to kill him at the time, there was somebody else in a completely different situation there to kill Koska anyway. So as he's taunting him and stuff, he goes to drink his booze and not realizing that the booze is obviously poison. So he drinks it and he's just like curious and like wondering why he feels so different and stuff. And then he like basically starts to die, and he and Koska have the same reaction. So they basically pass out looking like they've been poisoned. And then Morvir basically comes out taunting to do his, because he has this like little spike thing that he uses that has like very like intense poison on it to basically make sure they're dead in case they didn't get a proper dose or whatever to make sure they're totally dead. But then Casca basically pops up on him when he's trying to like go stab him and basically redirects it and basically gets like cut him on the leg more or less and poisons him. And he's like starts taunting. He's like, "Yeah, you're the one that basically told me I should stop drinking. So I stopped drinking a long time ago. My flask has goat milk in it and stuff." He's just like, "What?" So it's just like the coolest like twist ever. I thought it was so cool. I just loved it so much. And it's so right within character. He's basically been warning that he would do stuff like this the entire time. He's not reliable. He's a scoundrel and all this kind of stuff. And I just thought it was so great, especially because like this very arrogant poisoner like getting his comeuppance in the way that he does, because he was just so confident that he had won. I loved it so much. It's just so much fun. It's so good. Like I think like Joe Abercrombie is very like basically famous at this point for being Lord Grimdark. Like that's his Twitter handle, I think. Like he is very much in the grimdark fantasy, but he should really be far more praised for his character work because I'm not a huge character reader. As y'all probably know, I am a world building magic system type reader. So for me to be this obsessed with characters is like just rare for me. So I think he should be so much more praised for his character work because he uses the grim dark subgenre. He doesn't use it to overly exploit like just the nature of grim dark, like the way people talk crap about the Game of Thrones TV show, like all the excessive amount of sex and nudity and stuff. Like he doesn't use grim dark to do sex and nudity or just hyper violent gore or anything like that. All of it has a very specific purpose. All of it is tied into the story, the plot, and the characters. It is just really well wrapped. It is just really well done. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up because this is 30 minutes of raw footage, and I did the vlog thinking that the vlog would shorten this review, and it didn't. So yeah, I hope you stuck around this long to gush about how great these characters are. Let me know in the comments down below if you've finished the standalones. Does the character work keep going? Does it stay at this level? I don't want it to, drop down at all. Let me know if you've read Best Served Code in the comments down below. What did you think about it? So of course, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and check out the Patreon if you're interested. And as always, I will talk to y'all next time. Peace.